Have you ever felt a craving you couldn't name? A silent pull in your chest that kept returning no matter how much you tried to silence it? Not loud, not dramatic, just there. Constant, it's subtle, like a whisper under your breath that refuses to die. You call it preference, instinct, maybe even fate. But what if it's none of those? What if it's the shadow of a forgotten wound, still breathing beneath your smile? You walk through life believing you're making choices, but some of them were made for you long before you could speak, influenced by unseen hands, by unmet needs, buried memories, and quiet aches that twisted into decisions. And those decisions? They become your patterns. They show up in the people you chase, the pain you repeat, the same heartbreaks, the same self-sabotage, the same unbearable silence after it all ends. There's something ancient within you, a force that doesn't scream for attention but lives in the quiet moments, in the pause before you speak, in the way your heart races when someone truly looks at you, in the tears you swallow when you're alone. It doesn't come from logic. It doesn't come from what you should want. It comes from the part of you you've spent a lifetime trying to bury. And yet, it's always been there, breathing beneath your every smile, trembling behind your ambition. Not to destroy you, but to be heard. You were taught to tame your impulses, to numb your longings, to perform. But what if those longings were never your enemy? What if they were the map? Desire isn't a flaw, it's a message. It's not always about lust or pleasure. Sometimes it's about being seen, being chosen, being real. It's about belonging so deeply that for once, you don't have to pretend. That aching need to be touched isn't about the skin. It's about the soul beneath it, screaming to be known. And when that cry is ignored long enough, it doesn't disappear. It evolves. It grows sharper in the dark. And eventually it wears a mask of its own. You've worn that mask. The confident one, the charming one, the reliable one. The mask that keeps the world impressed and your heart in chains. But beneath it, there's a storm, a fire, a question that won't die. Who am I when I'm not performing? You want control. You want structure. You want to believe you're the architect of your life, but control is often just the illusion we wear to keep chaos at bay. That need to plan every step, to never slip, to always smile. It's not strength. It's fear dressed up in discipline. It's the shadow begging not to be seen. And the more you ignore it, the more it guides you. It picks your lovers. It shapes your dreams. It fuels your addictions. That forbidden hunger you never talk about, it's already writing your story. And it doesn't care about your reputation, your deadlines, your goals. It only wants one thing: recognition. Carl Jung didn't see desire as something to suppress. He saw it as sacred, a raw life force, a mirror to the self, especially the parts we deny, the wounds we pretend don't ache anymore, but they do. They always have. And that's where your power lives, in the hurt, in the hunger, in the parts of you you're too afraid to show. You've convinced yourself that healing means silencing the past, but real healing comes from listening to it, from letting the ache speak, from standing at the edge of your longing and not turning away. What if the very thing you've feared your whole life, the desire you called dangerous, is the same thing that can set you free? You don't need to kill your shadow. You need to meet it, sit with it, let it tell you its story. Because that story, that's your freedom, that's your truth. That's where you begin again, not as a persona, not as a performance, but as the whole of who you are. And no amount of rational thinking can touch the ache that lives in your bones. No affirmation can hush the storm that brews below your surface, because the unconscious mind isn't moved by clever words or good intentions. It speaks in symbols, it learns through patterns, it remembers through repetition. That's why you keep making the same mistakes. That's why your stomach knots up before every big leap, why you're magnetically drawn to people who cut you open in all the familiar ways. They're not random. They're mirrors, reflecting something you haven't faced yet. Something ancient. Something yours. The unconscious doesn't whisper when ignored. It roars. It screams through the friction in your relationships, the endless cycles, the breakdowns you didn't see coming but somehow always expected. Do your relationships crumble in the same way every time? Nor do your victories feel hollow? That isn't coincidence. That's repetition. And it's happening because your wounds are still wide open, trying to finish a story that never got closure. You keep playing out the same scene, hoping one day it ends differently, hoping maybe this time the pain will finally make sense. But how can you change the ending when you don't even know the story's on repeat? You can't. Not until you rip the mask from your face and look yourself in the eye, not the version you show the world, but the one hiding underneath. And what you'll see won't be simple. It'll be messy. It'll be hungry. You'll find fear and shame and longing. You'll feel the fury of 1,000 silent betrayals, each one committed by you against yourself. Every time you smiled through resentment, every time you bit your tongue to belong, every time you made yourself smaller to fit into a space never meant for your full self. That's where it began, the self-abandonment. You split yourself into fragments to earn love, to feel safe. You gave away pieces you never had to. And now, even when life looks fine on the outside, there's a gnawing emptiness that never leaves. That ache you can't name, that's your soul. It's been knocking on the door for years, calling you back, not to the person the world wants, but to who you were before you buried yourself under masks. But coming back, it's no easy journey. You'll meet parts of yourself you've disowned, the ones who desired what they weren't supposed to, the ones who lied to feel loved, the parts that hated themselves while pretending to be whole, and you'll have to welcome them in, not as enemies, not as mistakes, but as pieces of a deeper truth. Because the wound isn't healed by denial, it's healed through integration, by saying, yes, this is also me. Within you lives both gentleness and rage, grace and chaos, strength and fragility. You weren't made to be perfect, you were made to be whole. The problem was never the desire, it was your refusal to hear what that desire was trying to show you. You can keep faking control, keep telling yourself you've got it handled. But deep down, something in you knows the truth, and that truth will never stop chasing you until you turn around and face it. There's a wildness inside you, a fire. It doesn't follow rules. It doesn't care about what's appropriate. It wants freedom, it wants truth. It's been buried under guilt and shame for so long that you've mistaken its roar for danger. But it's not here to burn you down. It's here to wake you up. Carl Jung called this energy Eros. But not the romantic love wrapped in soft words, not lust, not obsession. Eros is deeper. It's the primal breath that moves through everything that's alive. The force behind creation, the spark behind art, the fury behind destruction. It doesn't want to be pretty. It wants to be real. Eros shows up in your dreams, in your obsessions, in the projects you can't finish, in the longings you can't explain. It moves like lightning through your body and soul, demanding expression. It's not about sex. It's about life itself, and like all fire, it can light the way, or burn it all down. That's why Jung said it must never be repressed. It must be understood. Because anything you push into the dark doesn't disappear. It mutates. It becomes your sabotage, your shadow, your shame. And yet, there are people you meet who carry something electric in their presence, something untamed. They didn't kill their eros. They made peace with it. They walked with it, talked to it, like a wild animal not tamed by force, but by respect. And in that bond their chaos became their compass. Their desire became their direction. That transformation, when raw passion becomes purpose, that's alchemy. Not the kind with potions and spells, but the kind where shame turns into truth, where longing turns into art, and where the fire that once devoured you now lights your path. Ask yourself, what drives you? What keeps you chasing recognition, craving love, fearing failure? If you dig deep enough, you'll find Eros. It's the force behind your ambition, behind your collapse. It creates masterpieces and destroys lives, not because it's evil, but because it's powerful. And power, when unclaimed, destroys. But when embraced, when truly seen and integrated, it becomes something holy, something healing. That's what Jung meant by individuation, becoming whole. Not by cutting yourself in half, but by holding both ends together. Not by becoming pure, but by becoming real. Not by fighting Eros, and not by surrendering to it, but by walking beside it. You've felt its presence before, during heartbreak, during inspiration, in moments of raw creation. That wasn't coincidence. That was Eros finding the crack in your armor, slipping through when you were too broken to resist, reminding you you're alive. And you were never meant to live half asleep. Now imagine all the time you've spent hiding that fire, locking it away to be acceptable, respectable, normal. What could you have built if you had used that energy instead? What truths could you have spoken? What life could you have lived? It's not too late. The fire is still there. It's still waiting. And when you finally say yes to it, not as a servant or as a master, but as an equal, your presence changes. Your voice deepens. Your eyes carry something ancient and undeniable. You're no longer pretending. You become real, fully, fiercely, dangerously real. Do you want to be powerful? then stop running from your hunger. Turn it into something right. Building love, create, speak. Not to impress, but to release what's been dying to be heard. You don't need to destroy your fire. You need to understand it. To let it guide you toward a life that doesn't need performance. Because within that fire lies your truth. And it's been waiting patiently, fiercely for you to come home. And now as you stand at the edge of yourself where the path splits, you either gather every piece of who you are and walk forward whole, or you let the waves of everything you've denied wash over and consume you. Most people don't choose wholeness. They settle for comfort. They cling to roles, to identities sculpted not by truth but by fear of rejection. They live inside masks they forgot were masks, smile in mirrors they no longer recognize, and call it life. How many times have you betrayed yourself in small, quiet ways? Said yes when your bones screamed no. Gave your body when your soul was absent. Played nice to keep the peace while your spirit crumbled in silence. That doesn't disappear just because you pretend it didn't happen. Your inner world remembers. Every moment of silence, every fake smile, every time you swallowed the truth, it adds up. And slowly, piece by piece, you forget who you were before the pretending began. Until one day, the mirror shows a stranger and you realize you've forgotten the sound of your own voice. Then something real arrives. A deep want, a hunger that doesn't negotiate. It crashes through the walls you built and demands to be felt. But desire, true desire, is dangerous. Because if you follow it, everything could unravel. The life you've built might collapse. The relationship, the career, the identity you've curated with such care. So you run. You bury it under the distractions, logic, schedules. But it doesn't vanish. It waits. It lurks in the shadows of your mind, in your sleepless nights, in the quiet rage that comes from nowhere, in the numbness that you've labeled normal. Desire unacknowledged becomes your captor. It distorts itself, turns bitter, surfaces in strange ways. But to welcome it, that takes courage. It means embracing your inner contradictions, that you're not a single tidy self, but a wild constellation of selves. Inside you lives a priest and a predator, a lover and a saboteur. All of them are real. All of them are you. It's unsettling to face them. It disrupts the tidy categories you've been fed your whole life. But in that discomfort lies the first breath of freedom. You were never meant to amputate parts of your soul to be good. You were meant to integrate, to walk with your impulses, not under their rule, but not in denial either. When you do that, desire transforms. It stops being a secret shame and becomes a compass. It points not toward destruction, but toward authenticity. And when you ignore it, when you force yourself to live someone else's story, your soul wilts. You end up in lives that look fine from the outside, but feel hollow within. Smiling for pictures, but grieving in private. And the cruel twist? The key was never hidden. The door was never locked. You were the one holding it shut. Not because you're weak, but because you were taught to fear your own power. Because a person who accepts their shadow, who dances with the darker parts of themselves, is impossible to control. They don't buy what they're told to buy. They don't live to be liked. They awaken others just by existing. And that kind of person doesn't fit easily into systems of control. So the world ridicules that fire in you, calls it dangerous, sinful, chaotic. When really, it's sacred. But when you honor that fire, something changes. You stop reacting and start responding. You stop chasing and begin choosing. You don't need permission to be whole. You need bravery. Because desire, once integrated, doesn't vanish. And it matures. It stops screaming for attention and starts whispering direction. You begin to see clearly. The job you hate. The relationship that's dead. The beliefs that never felt true. You stop blaming the world and start reclaiming your power. And that's when it hits you. The prison was never real. It was a habit. A habit of saying no to yourself. You don't need to be flawless. You need to be honest. And honesty means admitting that what you want is not a flaw. It's a clue. A spark. A flare from the depths of your being saying, I'm still here. I still matter. If you feed that fire with awareness, it becomes your light. If you starve it, it becomes your darkness. They say where your fear is, there lies your power. So if your deepest desire shakes you, maybe that's exactly where your strength is hiding. But the moment you answer that call, the moment you turn that doorknob and step through, there's no turning back. You can't unsee. You can't unknow. The truth will strip everything false away and it will hurt. But the cost of pretending, that hurts even more. So now ask yourself, how many times today did you silence your truth? How often did you label longing as laziness? How many masks did you wear just to keep things easy for everyone else? Maybe right now something inside you is stirring, a pressure in your chest, a tightening in your throat. That's not discomfort, that's awakening. Something is moving, something is remembering. But truth doesn't come with fireworks, it comes with collapse. It tears down everything that was built on lies. Only in that wreckage do you begin to see yourself clearly. Jung never promised comfort. He gave us a mirror. Most look away. But if you're still listening, if you're still holding these words in your chest, then maybe you've already begun. Maybe something in you refuses to go back to sleep. I remember lying awake one night, staring into the dark. There was a burn inside me. Not fear, not sadness, something more alive, something raw, a hunger to stop hiding. So I wrote. And out of all the words, one sentence refused to let go of me. The part of me that scares me the most might be the one that needs me the most. I share this not as advice, but as recognition. You're not broken, you're unfolding. We all carry forgotten pieces of ourselves waiting for us to return, and when we do, not with shame, but with reverence, we don't just find ourselves. We find the light we've been chasing in others, in achievement and distraction. That light was never outside, it was always inside, dim but never dead. If you're still here, still breathing with me through these words, then something has shifted. Even if it's quiet, even if it's small, that shift is everything. It's how revolutions begin. Not with noise, but with a whisper. And now, the machine waits. It doesn't understand truth. It only counts clicks. So this is your moment. Feed the machine blindly or play it with intention. Leave behind a message only the awakened would understand. Something cryptic, something real. Maybe it means nothing. Maybe it's your soul learning a new language. And if you haven't subscribed yet, maybe this is your synchronicity, that strange nudge from the universe disguised as a video. Or maybe it's something deeper, trying to speak through coincidence. This is your sign, not just to stay, but to awaken, to remember, to walk through the door and never look back. Because behind one of those next videos might be the answer you've been chasing your entire life, or the question that finally sets you free.